Copilot's rolling out, and the headlines steal the rest of the news. Happy Friday, friends. Happy Friday. Hopefully everybody had a wonderful week. It's been a pretty crazy week. I think pretty crazy week. And for some reason, I hope this all records okay. I keep seeing some stuttering here happening on the recording as I stare into my own soul. But, the show must go on and I can't really watch it in hindsight. So let's just see what happens. Anyways, hopefully everybody had a wonderful week. Let's dive into the tech news headlines because there's a lot going on. So Copilot is rolling out to a lot more users. It's now in the release preview channel. And so the screenshot you see here on the screen is actually my own Copilot, my own recall. Now, I don't think there's anything sensitive showing here. And it works. It works, and it does some neat things. I haven't found it super functional, but it's interesting to say the least, and we'll continue to see how this tool evolves and see if it really becomes like a core experience to the everyday usage of Windows. But it's running, it's working, and it's doing its thing on my box, and it's interesting. So also, Copilot Vision is also rolling out. This is something that was announced last week at the 50th anniversary event. Sad panda news on this side, though. I don't have it yet, so I keep checking for those updates, and yet I don't have it on my particular device, but looking forward to giving that a shot and seeing what happens here. Now, other things that are floating around the interwebs in the world of Microsoft, they're apparently looking at, they sent out a survey, and somebody on Reddit posted this, of icons that they might be trying out for Office. And so I don't really love these. I mean, I guess change is inevitable, and so I'm not trying to, but here's like, I'll just point out one thing. The PowerPoint icon is round. Everything about PowerPoint is a rectangle. Slides are rectangle. The formatting is rectangular. And so there's only one icon that is round, by the way, and it's PowerPoint. It doesn't make sense to everything else. And so I don't know. Change is always never swallowed easily when it comes to icons, and I get particular about icons in general. But there's just these don't feel cohesive. Like, they don't feel like they all belong in the same thing. I don't know. Anyways, they're looking at these, not saying that they're final, but they're at least asking people for their opinions. Other things happening. Start menu is getting some changes. The native start menu, that is. You'll soon be able to just scroll down for all apps. And you'll also be able to turn off the recommended settings, finally. And so, yeah, it's not my favorite start menu, and I am obviously very biased because I helped design the Start 11 start menus that we shipped 18 months ago, maybe longer than that. But it doesn't matter. These things are coming natively to the OS, which is good. Right? Everybody should be happy with better and higher levels of improvements at the end of the day. Also, Clipchamp getting new features, although, again, not the feature that I really need to use it primarily. So templates, you'll be able to create templates. I mean, that's pretty self-explanatory. The thing that really holds me back from using Clipchamp for editing this video that you're watching right now, which was done on DaVinci Resolve, is where I have landed, is that Clipchamp doesn't do 30 frames per second output. And so I record at 30 FPS, as I've already noted. There's maybe this one might not be at 30 FPS. I don't know why I keep stuttering in the playback that I'm watching live. But if Clipchamp did 30 or 60 FPS output, then I could use it for everything. But as of right now, it's locked to 30. And so it just doesn't, it's just not great. For when you do stuff like this. But for corporate videos, I guess it's fine. For shorts, I guess it's fine too. But yeah, so those are like some of the bigger headlines. Now, there are Microsoft's original Surface Hub, the big daddy, the big thick daddy, I should say, is coming to end of support in October of 2025. Also, Patch Tuesday has occurred. So if your computer reboots or says it needs patching, that is what is part of it, is for Windows 10 and 11. There were a lot of patches, I believe, coming out this week. Now, on to the gaming news. So Xbox has announced their showcase for June. This is the June 8th, where they will do what they've done for now, 3 years in a row, where they will have back-to-back events. So they'll have the showcase that shows off games that may not necessarily be launching this year, but things that are coming down the pike here. And so that should be playable soon. And then after that will be Outer Worlds 2. There's going to be a nice long deep dive. They actually released some video through IGN as an exclusive. I think it's like 11 minutes of gameplay. And so if you like the first one, which I did play, and so is the Outer Worlds 2, if there's high expectations for this for this title. So I think it's also safe to say that it will be launching in 2025. I think they said that. I cannot remember. I know going into the year, we weren't quite sure when it was going to launch, but if they're doing a direct event for it, that would follow in the showcase, or in the footsteps, I should say, of what Starfield and Black Ops 6 both launched in the same year that they had their direct event. So I think we can safely conclude that that will be something that is happening this year. So, other things that are happening that you should be aware of. South of Midnight is now available through Game Pass, so everybody can do that. You could play it earlier if you paid some additional dollar dues, and so it's getting really good reviews. Just like the Minecraft movie, by the way. Wow, like there's two sides of this review. There's like the side of like the Rotten Tomatoes and critics, and like it's not universally loved from that story-driven perspective, but from anybody who's like 6 to 10 years old, it's a huge hit. It is all the memes. Like it's doing well, and I think they're gonna have a very good result because of this. It seems like it's doing exactly what it needs to do. Same with South of Midnight. The thing that is worth pointing out right now, because if you haven't been paying attention to the headlines, gaming and everything and literally in life is about to get real expensive, especially for those of us here in the United States. And so while I try to stay away from politics as much as I can, tariffs are a real thing that we cannot avoid. And there were about 1 million questions this week that we'll be talking about here in a second related to that. However, I just want to point something out for you when it comes to value in gaming. Now, I'm not trying to shill for Xbox. However, for about $350 dues right now, if you have no console, or if you have a friend who has no console, or if you have a mom, a dad, an aunt, an uncle, and somebody, a niece, a nephew who needs a gaming console for $350, so that's $299 for the Xbox Series S. You can find them at $299. Yes, you can. I looked on Best Buy right before I recorded this, and Amazon, and you can find them, yes, for that price. Plus 1 month of Game Pass for $20, or you could go all in and it's like $100 for the year. Maybe it's more than that. Might be more than that. Anyways, actually it'd be a great deal at $100 a year. So anyways, for $350, you can get a console, and then you can play Indiana Jones, Avowed 2, Black Ops 6, and South of Midnight. You could play all those single player campaigns. That is one player campaign, single player game per week for $350. That is a pretty darn good deal. Now, granted, you got to pay $20 the next month, but there's a lot of titles in there. And so the Switch 2 is obviously being tossed around a lot because, hey, it's $499 for the Switch 2 plus a game, and you got to buy a game. So you're looking at $500. And then if you're in the United States, the tariffs, they're not doing pre-orders because they don't know how much it's going to cost, because that's a little unstable mess and probably causing a lot of headaches for Nintendo right now. So it's just something to keep in mind that if you don't want to spend $500 on a Switch 2, $350 goes a very long way in the Xbox ecosystem, and it's something that you should be considering. And something else that I am considering, Blueprints is a new game. I'm almost positive this is on Game Pass. If not, shame on me. But Blueprints, which I didn't load up an image, looks super interesting. It's like a puzzle-style game, and it's getting a lot of praise. And this might be my type of game that I'd be picking up next. Blueprints is a story puzzler. If I understand it correctly, it's got interesting art styles and worth paying attention to as well in the Game Pass universe. Also from Microsoft this week, they released a new video campaign, or new video ad called Wake Up that basically features a rat. And so that was immediately interpreted like, are all Xbox gamers rats? But it's like kind of showing you what the daily slog is like, and then you come home and then you get to wake up and become a gamer. It's like maybe we're entering back into that weird ads are back. There was definitely an Xbox 360 period where that was a thing. And so maybe they're trying that. At least it's not the Xbox is everywhere, mantra I've been hearing for a while. And this one's pretty dark and dystopian, if I'm going to be honest. But at first I thought it was like a Ninja Turtles sort of Master Splinter thing, but that was definitely not it. It's definitely about slogging through the entire workday, and then you get to go home and play games, and that's where you become you, and you aren't, I guess, a rat in the daily wheel of life. Got it, like I said, kind of dark and dystopian, just a little bit here. If you're on the audio side, you should probably go watch this. It's called Wake Up. Just go look at the Xbox YouTube channel, and they probably have it pinned as the #1 item, but it is definitely a an interesting ad, if you want to say that about it. Wake up the humans inside, I guess, is the full tagline there. Also, Samsung getting a shout out for playing it on a Samsung OLED display. So interesting stuff. Those are the big sort of headlines of the week. We got a decent amount of questions into the hopper here. We got questions about tariffs. We got questions about everything. And so let's see here. Notifications. I forgot to pull this up. Let's see here. Where are those? Oh, right. Profile. I can't believe I did this again. All right, first question comes from Robert. He says, with the discourse around Doug Bowser's comments about keeping the Switch 1 going, oh, that's right, because of the Switch 2 being expensive, does this validate Don Matrick's much maligned Xbox 360 comments, or should Nintendo have followed Phil Spencer's lead and released a mid-range, cheaper Switch 2? So the TLDR of this is somebody said, hey, you know what? That Switch 2 is actually kind of expensive. Right? $500 is not cheap, especially when the Switch Lite is available for $199. And so his comments were like, we have a console for that. It's called the Switch 1. And that is extremely reminiscent of the Xbox One. If you don't like playing online or you're in a submarine, we have a console for that. It's called the Xbox 360. And that spiraled a huge media fiasco that really led to the flubbed launch of the Xbox One. That was like, I don't want to say the core tenet because there's that TV thing, which most of us are familiar with. And so, yeah, I don't think it doesn't serve any justice or make Matrick's comments any better. It's really a huge flub by Nintendo and Bowser at the end of the day. Like you know what happens when you say these things. What he should have said was something like, look, we understand that this is expensive. We are trying to do the best we can to create the best value for our customers, and we hope that they join us on this journey. Just something very corporate-y, vomity like that. Not like, go buy the old thing that's garbage. Like, that never ends well. So Cadgart says, yo, when is the next prop hunt stream? So I've streamed prop hunt a decent amount. I should do it again. I haven't done it in a few days because I've been just like super busy on this end, but I will do it again here too. And he says, the next question is, Outer Worlds 2 was announced. It will be for pre-order on battle.net this week, and it seems like more MS games are being added to that platform lately. I'm curious about the reasoning. Steam still dominates the PC game sales, and it's clear that most people avoid the Windows Store. Is this a way for Microsoft to keep a bigger cut selling through battle.net instead of Steam? Well, absolutely. I mean, unless Microsoft has their own custom deal, I think they're playing at least 25% of sales through Steam, like to Steam. And so it's probably 30%, but there's like some things with Steam where if you get a certain percentage, then it does drop. And I'm sure Microsoft is in that. I think they do that on battle.net because that's a free 30%. Not to mention, we always keep hearing about these things in the background of Microsoft wanting to build their own sort of game experience through their various platforms outside of Steam. They would love to control their own destiny. And so everybody who buys it on battle.net is like one more person and one more thing that they can do to keep that dream alive. We don't know if they're going to go all in on that. Like giving up Steam would be challenging, to say the least, but it's something Microsoft could do. Let's be real. Do we think Microsoft is going to pull Call of Duty from Steam at any point in the future? That would be tough. That would be tough to swallow. And that they would have to be super confident in their ability to deliver to do something like that. Matt Diney says, hey, Brad, thoughts on the terrible new Xbox advert? How is that even green lit? So it's an interesting ad. I don't know if everybody would say it's terrible, and I don't think everybody obviously is going to say it's great. It is a thought provoker, different, and it's different. I think it was greenlit because it is different and the weird maybe attracts enough attention. And so that's probably what they are going for. Rafik says, hi Brad, Game Pass is a great service, but it's not for everyone. It still didn't penetrate the big AAA market from big game third-party developers like Project Red. And it's unstable or unsustainable because they prioritize sales. But still, what can Microsoft do to fix it to bring more AAA games day one to the service? So Microsoft will struggle immensely to bring like GTA 6 on launch day to Game Pass. That is, don't see that happening unless they're willing to shell out literally like $1 billion, especially for like big branded titles. Now, for their own games, that makes a lot of sense. They will never be able to clean up the entire market like that because also the market's a little bit scared. Think about Cyberpunk. Let's say Cyberpunk Next is launching next week, and they go to Game Pass. Obviously, then they strap themselves to that Game Pass subscriber base for a lot of different reasons. Here's one example. So if they have it in Game Pass on day one, and then they pull it out, all those gamers who played through are not going to be able to buy the DLC unless they buy the game again. And so that's not very lucrative to Project Red, who wants to sell DLCs. So it might come eventually when Microsoft's willing to pay out, and it's later in that life cycle, just like we're seeing GTA 5 coming back into Game Pass. Remember, that's also a marketing mechanism. Get people playing GTA 5, then they're probably going to want to jump to 6. It's a little bit of a win-win for everybody because you get to play in Game Pass, like myself, and then you also get people interested in the next release. I don't think we're going to see third-party studios outside of Microsoft launching their big branded titles unless Microsoft is shelling out serious dollars, but even that is a dangerous proposition for the I don't want to say independent game developers, but those other studios like Rockstar and EA and although some of EA stuff, right, is in there. So it's interesting. It is interesting. Next question from Craig says, "Hey Brad, what's going to be the deal with Surface? With Surface and all the tariffs?" Well, it's tough because I would assume that they're going to be subject to the same tariffs that everybody else is for where they produce their devices. I don't know exactly where all of Surface stuff is, but I'd have to think China. I mean, it's going to be impacting game consoles. It's going to be impacting everybody. That's why I noted if you're like looking for a console, $350 plus Game Pass, or $300 plus Game Pass is a really good deal to keep you gaming for a while without having to buy any additional games outside of the subscription that you would have to sign up for at $20 dues a month. So it's a good question. I always worry about Surface now that it's sort of, I don't want to say lost its way, but now it's regressed to the mean, if you will. Like it's only the devices that sell the laptop and the Pro primarily at this point. And so if tariffs come along and destroy that business, Microsoft might just set it free. That's a very real concern right now. And I even have every laptop I have in this house. I'm looking at a Surface Book 3. I got a Surface Laptop Studio. My new primary daily driver is a Surface Laptop 7 with a dock, and it's a wonderful piece of hardware. So I hope Surface does not get blown away during all of this, but it's definitely creating a challenge for everybody who produces hardware outside and has to import it. It is something we should all be paying attention to without any additional political commentary from yours truly, whether or not they are good, or I shouldn't say good or bad. I'm not a believer in tariffs. We'll put it that way. But you know what? I'm not in the government. So yeah. That wraps it up for this week, guys. It was a bit of a shorter, lighter week, in quotations, lighter, mostly because last week was the 50th anniversary event where a lot of stuff got announced, and so it's just one of those weeks. We should start to hear more as we get closer to Build. Typically, like 2 weeks out from Build, we hear a bunch, and then the week before Build, there's nothing, and then the week of Build, there's a whole bunch of stuff. So let's keep our eyes and ears peeled for that, and as always, my friends, make sure to keep it subscribed to here, because the BS on this podcast is me.